the morning sunrise. In Lions Gate, 'neath the tall fir trees, on your face feel the ocean breeze. Feel the magic that's in the air, in Lions Gate the fair.
So I think that's my cue to introduce us. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Lions Den, Demystifying COVID Requirements for Crown with Master Eduardo. We are putting this together. Really, Master Eduardo has put this together to help the the folks that live in the United States navigate the requirements to cross the border to go to this event. Eduardo has traveled across several times to see his mom, so he is well versed in this. So please take it away.
Thanks. So I hope that'll be interactive. I do have a PowerPoint to share, and it's got lots of links and URLs and things for you to check out later. But I'm going to start by sharing that. Hopefully I can share my screen. Let's see. Hopefully you can see this, and it's probably, you can probably see the see it okay. Can you give me the thumbs up if you can see it? Okay, good. So crossing the border, I want to make sure that everybody understands that this is my personal experience in crossing. This is the research that I've done. Your mileage may vary, and it's important to realize that things change. And first and foremost, I want to say that I've crossed twice, once in July as soon as it opened for Canadians to cross the border, because I'm a dual citizen. So I went up in July as soon as I didn't have to quarantine. And then I went up in August, the day after it opened for Americans. I'm a dual citizen. So the first time I went up as a Canadian, the second time I went up as a US citizen. I want to make sure that everybody really understands this is in no way is intended to be an official Society of Creative Anachronism presentation of any kind. These are just personal experiences and shouldn't be taken as gospel or the law. You need to do your own research. I'll probably say that multiple times because I do not want to be on the hook for anything that happens, and either does the SCA. It's really important that you understand that the policies and procedures that I put together for tonight, as well as all the URLs, are likely to change. Probably not because we're so close, because it's within a couple weeks, but they changed a lot for me between when I started looking in July, when I went in July, when I went in August. Things change constantly. So please make sure that you supplement this presentation with your own research. And I really want to let you all know that I do bureaucracy for a living. I've worked for the governor of Washington State. I've worked for the superintendent of public construction. I've worked in government for 16 years. And more than that, I worked at Microsoft for 7, which is a bigger bureaucracy than the state. I do bureaucracy for a living, and this was not an easy process. There's lots of hoops to jump through. It's hard to figure it all out. You will probably not feel like you have everything together because it's so ambiguous in places. So your experiences are going to be different than my 2 crossings were different. And we can talk about that, and you can ask questions as well. So I'm going to go through this, and I'll go back to slides afterwards if anyone's interested. But we can take questions at the end. I only have a few slides. So before you cross, make sure, number one, this seems like, stupidity, but do you have an American passport? Is it current? Because I've crossed before to an arts and sciences event where everybody had their passports and they showed them to me. And one of them, who I won't say who, but whose initials are Sir Martin the Harper, his expired. So make sure it's current. When is it expired? It's really important because we might do all the COVID stuff, but you've got to make sure that you have a passport that's right. And there's a loophole in the crossings. It's not used very often, but it needs to be current it can expire within 6 months. They would likely let you across because you're only going for a couple days, but they could turn you back. So you have to have a current passport that doesn't expire within 6 months. Okay, another question. Have you crossed into Canada in the past? This is really important because they'll have a file on you and your car and everything. So if you've done that, it'll be a little bit easier. Have you been turned back at the Canadian border before? Because if you have, you probably don't want to go right now. And is there any reason that you might be turned back at the Canadian border? Now, here's the link to the reasons that you could be turned back, and I'm not sure it's going to work, but I will unshare and then share the screen. Share, because I did a here we go. Okay, so here, let me share this screen, which is the reasons you could be turned back, and there's a lot of them, and you should be really aware of them. So share this screen, and here we go. Share. Visitors to Canada. So this link goes to this site here, and it tells you all sorts of great information on your identification, declarations. Can I enter Canada? So yes, you can enter Canada, but you can't if you have any of these reasons. So this is a really good site, and the links will be in the presentation that hopefully we'll share with you. So lots of different reasons they won't let you into Canada. And you should be aware of those before you cross. Most of us are used to crossing because we've done it so many times, but if you haven't, check that site out. So that is, where's my PowerPoint presentation now? There it is. That is the first little bits that you have to think about before you cross. Okay, now the most important thing to do immediately is download ArriveCan. It looks like this in the App Store. I put a link in this. I'm not going to go to the links because they're just more information. It'll show you depending on what smartphone you have. Do you have a smartphone? You have to have a smartphone to cross. And you have to be using the ArriveCan app. So download it, and you've got to enter all your information into the ArriveCan app. We'll get into some of it, but you have to do your testing information. Before you go, you have to put the date that you're going to go. Everybody probably knows that already. The most important thing is that you have to put the time you are going to cross. So this is hard because, especially if you live in Portland, you have to go through lots of traffic. So what time am I actually going to get to the border? Depends on Seattle. It depends on Tacoma. It depends. So estimate and then put a couple of hours extra. The first time I crossed, I was there at exactly the right time. Like, I don't know how I did it, but I estimated 3 hours extra and I got there right on time. The second time I was there a little bit before my time and they let me through. I don't know what happens if you put the wrong time in and you're there 2 or 3 hours later, but they ask you for a date and a time. So you have to put that into your ArriveCan app. You have to put all the information that we're going to talk about tonight in the app. And before you cross, the day before or 2 days before, update the app. Because the app, I downloaded the app and I crossed 2 weeks later and it was out of date. And some of the information didn't transfer. I had all of the papers in hand, so that wasn't a problem, but download the app again or update it, make sure that you're up to date. And if any of your details have changed, you have to put those new into the ArriveCan app, and you have to have a new receipt. So they give you a receipt in the ArriveCan app that you can download and print. I would recommend you print everything. Have everything in hard copy just in case. That's what I did. The border guard was very happy that I did. So if you do change anything, you've got to do a new receipt. And then paper copies of everything is really important because you just don't know what they're going to want and what they're going to need. it was a big stack. Okay, so vaccination and testing is a really important part. So you have to be vaccinated, obviously. Everyone that goes into Canada has to be fully vaccinated and has to have waited the 2 weeks after vaccination before you're crossing. Hopefully everybody is, and you have to have the vaccination card, and it's got to be uploaded into the ArriveCan app. You have to take a COVID-19 test within 72 hours of crossing. So it can't be 73 hours, but it can be 24 hours. It just within that 72-hour period. It has to be a PCR NAAT molecular test and not an antigen. If it says antigen on your test site or your testing, run away, because they will turn you back. The border guard and I had a long discussion about this, and mine was a PCR NAAT test. Obviously, but I put it here because I didn't know who would be listening. It has to be negative in order for you to cross. I guess that's for his grace, maybe. Make sure it's negative. No. There's a really, really helpful site here on testing. I'll go through those sites in a minute when I'll share them all. And then there's a PDF that has a really great infographic that I'll show you in a minute. Also, the link is there. It really will help you in figuring things out. So that's the first step is, download the app, put your dates in, do your vaccination and testing, and then when you're crossing. So just always remember, the more polite you are to the border guard, the easier it's going to be. So be polite. Make sure you have your smartphone and all your paper copies handy. Don't be scrambling for them. And just so you know, the border is really light, or it has been the 2 times that I crossed. I was the only person. The first time there were 3 lanes open and me. The second time was the day after they opened it to Americans, and there were 5 lanes open, and it was me. It's really been light. The crossings have not been, and there was just a news article yesterday that I saw that said the crossings have been really light because it's a lot of work to go through all of this to cross. So in case I didn't mention it again, be polite when you cross the border. It's really important. Answer all their questions that they ask politely. The border guards really, really are there to help you cross. They're not there to keep you out, they're there to secure the border as well, but they want to help you. If you're pleasant and you're nice and polite and you say, I don't know, is this the right piece of information? They'll help you. They're really there to help. And then there's some really good information here, which I'll show you in a minute, on how to cross, but be polite. Say sorry a lot. That usually works. It's Canada after all. This is one thing that a lot of people are forgetting about. So even though you don't have to quarantine, you are subject to random COVID testing at the border. So that you could be selected for random testing. When I went up in July, actually, everyone coming in had to be tested. But now it's just randomly. And if you're selected to be randomly tested and you test positive, they have to instate your quarantine plan. So you have to have a quarantine plan in place, and it has to be entered into your ArriveCan app. But remember to have a paper copy, and the quarantine plan must include a suitable place to quarantine for at least 14 days or longer if you have a really bad case of COVID. You have to have access to the necessities of life. Just so you know, I sort of just copy and pasted this into my quarantine plan and said, I have this place and here it is and here's who it is. You have to give them all the information about where you're quarantining. You have to avoid contact with others who did not travel with you, and you have no visits from family or guests. And there's really more information on the quarantine planning at this link, and I'll show you that link in a minute. This is a big deal to have this in place. So you have to figure out where you're going to stay if you test positive. Now, in July, when I was tested, I was not randomly selected in August, but I was tested in July. Obviously, I tested negative because I'd had a COVID test within 72 hours. So the likelihood of testing positive is limited. I still had to have a quarantine plan in place, and the Canada Health and BC Health were not on the same page, and I suspect they still are not on the same page. So Canada Health called me, BC Health called me. They wondered if I was still quarantining. I didn't have to quarantine anymore. It was just a mess. But have that quarantine plan in place. It's really important. You also need to have a BC vaccine passport to do anything besides going to the event. If you're going to the grocery store, if you're going out for dinner, as an American, you can't get a BC passport because you have to have a BC health number. Now, the website that I have here says, and it's a BC government website, that all of the things you use to cross the border plus your American passport can be used as a BC vaccine passport. I would mark this site so that you can show it to anybody who says, but we can't let you in because you don't have a BC vaccine passport. There's likely to be that sort of thing. So make sure you do that and that you look at that site, which we'll look at it in a second. So I think this slide is crossing back into the US. Oh, you have a question real quick? Yeah. Go ahead.
I just have a quick comment instead of a question on the regulations on non-BC residents for vaccine passports and how everyone's.
Oh,
Where'd he go?
he's frozen. Are you frozen? Are you back?
A passport or US ID.
And, you froze, and we didn't get any of it until you said US ID.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my system doesn't work really well with Zoom. The regulations up here are very well known by all the locations that you would need to use them at, like restaurants and stuff like that. They're going to be very ready to take just your US passport or ID and your proof of vaccination. So if you bring a copy that you use to scan for the Can Arrive app, as long as you have that with you, there shouldn't be a problem with that. It's already been implemented by the time you guys get up here, it'll be implemented for 3 weeks, and it won't be a big issue. Just make sure you have that available with you at all times when you're showing them, because that's what they'll need to see.
Yeah. And I'll show you a list of all the places in a second. So I did all this research for how to get into Canada, and I got all the information, and then I was like, oh no, how do I get back into the States? I freaked out for a bit. If you're a US citizen and you have a passport, there's no extra requirements for crossing. None. So that's sort of a little scary, but yeah, you can just come back in. It's exactly like the ways we used to cross. There's no requirements or anything like that to come back into the States. So let me stop sharing this and go to, first off, why don't I just show you the sites really quick? There's so much information on them. They're really great. And I see there's somebody in the chat that has a question. Oh, it is Canadian Thanksgiving. It could increase the traffic a bit. You're right, Izzy. But probably not going up. It used to be really bad coming down for Canadian Thanksgivings, but who knows? You just don't know. You just never know. Lenora, I'll get to you in 2 seconds. Let me share the screen and share some of these sites. Okay. So that first one that I showed you that I actually went out in and back into, this is a really great site. It tells you just basic crossing. So if you've never crossed before or you're wanting to know if you can come in, this is a good one for that. It's in the PowerPoint presentation and we'll get that to you. This is all about the ArriveCan app. So how you use it, how what it does with automatic registration. Here's the different store. You can get it just from the ArriveCAN online store. You can get it from Apple or Google Play. It talks about all the security issues. It doesn't really matter if you're concerned about the security issues because you have to use it whether you like it or not. So you can read all that if you'd like to. This is a really good site on entering Canada by land and air. Obviously, we're going to do by air, but it talks about the COVID testing, the molecular, versus the antigen testing. It's got some great stuff here around fully vaccinated travelers. A really great site for that. This is the great infographic. So before you travel, and it walks you through everything on what you need and how to be tested. That's in there as well. And then finally, except I'm hidden here, this is about the BC vaccination card. It will say at the very bottom of this, that if you're out of the province, even Albertans and everybody else in Canada is also exempt. They have other requirements, but here are all the places that you need to show your vaccination, proof of vaccination, etc. Grocery stores, liquor stores, that'll be important for US people, or just get it at the duty free. But all sorts of different places that you need to show your proof of vaccination. So I put all those together into the PowerPoint, and I don't know how we're going to share it, but someone on Lions Den will share it around.
There's been a couple of questions about, is returning home an option for the quarantine?
I don't know for sure whether or not. Okay, here's what this is my experience. So when I crossed the first time, it was a very short trip. I crossed on Wednesday. You had to have a second test that time crossing. So I booked a test to cross, and I paid for the test and everything. And they actually tested me at the border. But the border guard said you can take it home and do it at home virtually and then mail it in, or you can go to a drugstore and they'll do it for you and they'll mail it in. So I did that on Thursday. And then I went to the island to see my mother because I was on the mainland. My test did not come back until Tuesday. It was negative, but I was already back in the United States. So I don't think they're doing instant rapid testing at the border. They're doing the 24 to 48 hours. So if you look at the timeline, you cross on Friday. Oh, you're selected for testing. They're not going to get the test back until Monday because it's Canada and nobody works on the weekend. So you won't get it back until Monday or Tuesday, and you'll likely already be in the States. I don't believe quarantining, like saying I'm going to just go back home, is actually going to be an option because you're tested positive and you're in Canada. But you could put it on as your quarantine plan. Or you could just say I'm just going to stay at Savrix. I don't know what your quarantine plan is going to be. I'm lucky. I have family up there. I have lots and lots of friends. It was easy for me to set up, but this is one of the things that I think is going to be a sticking point for people. Is that it? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's pretty clear. That's one of those things that people are going to have to do their own research on.
Yeah, and if you look at the quarantine plan, it doesn't give that as an option. So I couldn't find that option anywhere. But if you do, share it with people. Oh, Finn just came home. We're not coming to Crown because someone turned their passport in to be renewed 3 days before it was announced. No, that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. But also we already had plans for that weekend, so we will not be coming up.
So you can use an enhanced license as well to cross the border, correct? It's not just passports. Is that?
You used to be able to use your enhanced driver's license to get across the border.
Not anymore.
I'm not exactly sure about that. I have a passport card and a passport, and that's what I use. I would do a little bit more research on that and then share it with the group.
Yeah.
I thought the regulations changed just before we went into COVID, but I could be wrong.
We'll look into that as the event team and put it on the
That'd
event
be great.
copy as well.
And you should Your Grace, you should always have a passport. What if
Oh
somebody
yeah, my passport's
said,
it's done this year.
I got an extra ticket to go to France. You want to come? Oh, sorry, you can't come. You don't have a passport.
No, I do not want to go. It's my choice.
As just to say on the advanced driver's license, because my driver's license came due this year. From what I was told at the DMV, the enhanced driver's licenses are still valid as they normally would be, but they're not renewing them, so they're good until they expire.
Okay.
I knew that there was.
They're not renewing them in BC. Are they renewing them in the US?
No, because the BC ones aren't being renewed because the US told them to stop.
Okay.
So they are honoring it though. So yeah. So I got 5 years.
Sorry, and Lenore, you had a question.
Oh, my question was about the quarantine plan and could the Americans just turn around and come home? So you guys already discussed it. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. If anybody finds out more information on that, that would be great.
We will be looking into that as the event team as well. I'm making notes of things, and we'll add that. We'll add the quarantine plan. We'll add about the ArriveCAN and sort of anything new tonight. We'll add to the event copy as we get the details.
And then I'll share the PowerPoint too, so you can have all the links and stuff, because those links are really, really helpful.
Yeah, we've got some of those, but not all. So thank you for that.
So Eduardo, with the ArriveCAN app, can you put all your info in there before the 72 hours you're supposed to cross?
Yeah, you can put, so the trick is that you have to have a crossing date and a crossing time before it will let you do anything else, which was what held me up originally, because I was like, well, I might come up on this day. I don't know when I'm coming. But yes, you put it all in ahead of time. But the first thing they'll ask you is the date and the time. You can't do anything else until you do that. And it's a little bit, it's pretty straightforward, but the very first questions are whether or not you're exempt. No one going to the event, as far as I can tell, would be exempt. I had an exemption on one crossing because it was health related for my mother. That's when I was the Canadian going across, and I didn't exempt the second time. Oh,
I mean, what do you think a good reason for someone down here to come up?
No, Americans can go to Canada now for any reason whatsoever.
Oh,
It's not restricted anymore. So there was a time where you could, as an American, cross if you were essential, if you were a truck driver,
right?
If you were that. Now any American can go for tourism, for anything whatsoever. So you guys can just say that you're going across for a recreational historic event or whatever you usually say, so the border guard doesn't hassle you too much. But they'll know. They know. Yeah. So it'll be fine. Also, you can use, which I just found out, and I was asked this previous to this meeting, you can use the ArriveCAN app for multiple people. So everybody that's traveling together can use the ArriveCAN app. So everybody doesn't have to have a phone and swap out phones. You can use ArriveCAN for multiple people. Apparently there's an option. I didn't, because it was just me going across, but you can use it for multiple people. It's on one of those websites. I found that out today. Can we get on website if, oh, I'm just reading, sorry, I'm reading the comments here. Okay, it may not be possible to share the PowerPoint depending on how the event was set up on Facebook. Okay, well, maybe I'll just share it with, on my Facebook page, or we'll share it as much as possible, because the links are really helpful. And I think I heard Isabella say that they were going to add the links. So
you should be able to share it in the chat too.
Good idea. I will do that. If I can remember where I saved it. Any other questions or comments? I really want to say again, remember, this is my experiences. This is not an official SCA event. This is, you should do your own research as much as possible, all that sort of stuff, because we don't want anybody to be liable for anything.
Eduardo, did you have any problems like getting your test results back in time or anything like that?
Yeah, so I did have a problem the second time actually trying to find a location that would do the testing. The first time it was really easy. I got my results back like within an hour, which I was shocked about. That was at Walgreens here in the US. It was a drive-through and it was a self, like you drove through and they're like, here's your stick. And then they're like, no, further up, push it further up. Like, it was really actually the worst COVID test that I've had. And I've had a lot of them because I had COVID. The second time it was very difficult to find some place that had an opening. I did finally, like, it was like Go Health or something. It was someplace I had never heard of before, but it was hard to find a place. The results came back in immediately. Like, I didn't even leave the clinic and the results were back. So getting the results back isn't a problem. Finding a place that's going to be able to do it and not do the antigen test, but do the NAAT molecular test might be a little bit difficult.
I got my PCR test done at Zoom Care. That worked.
Yeah, as long as it's a PCR NAAT test, I found the here you go. I hope that worked. Yeah, it should work, but don't forget it's 72 hours, so you have to find another one. Like, I would suggest you get it done on Wednesday afternoon, because if you get it done on Tuesday, then the 72 hours on Friday could, depending on traffic. So start looking for one now. Sometimes they don't open them until a week before, but look for a place now, or book an appointment with your doctor. Unfortunately, some of the places are only doing it if you have symptoms. They're not doing it for travel. Oh, I can't seem to copy this PowerPoint into the...
I have a list too of places that you can get it done for free, and I can share that in the chat.
That would be great. And yeah, and so people have been saying, oh, it's going to be so expensive. I didn't pay for either of my tests. It was, as far as I know, it's been free, or my insurance has paid for it, or it's been free. There have been some news reports that non-exposure testing is limited due to the high demand for exposure testing. Yeah, that's probably why. And yeah, I would suggest you schedule immediately. And for some reason, I don't know why, I cannot seem to share this with you guys. The file in the chat.
Well, Eduardo, if you do like an album on your Facebook and make it of everything and make it public, then I can share it on the Sisters page, and
we'll figure out how to share it. And that's for the Seattle area. I know people are looking down here, and it's pretty good in the Portland area as well, but south of Portland, it's been difficult to find appointments. Other questions, comments? Did this scare you? Are you still gonna go?
Seems hard.
It is a little daunting.
Yeah, but
you've got a lawyer in your pocket.
What's that?
Hi, Stella. You've got a lawyer in your pocket.
think Savrik needs to post his address so we can all use him for our quarantine plans.
I'll go find
But
an
you
old
also have-
crier.
but
There
you
should be
also-
an
part
old
of that-
crier.
Part of the quarantine plan is that you have to quarantine with someone you didn't. Well, you can't be with someone you traveled with. So somebody that they'll have to lock you in the basement or something.
I'm set. I got my in-laws up there, but I was joking.
I'm gonna have to clean the guest room, apparently.
And put a lock on it.
Oh. Right now it's the SCA kind of hoarder room, so
Sounds perfect.
yeah. A little bit.
So that one will have to be answered by a site person. Do the fighters have to wear masks during the tournament?
That has yet to be determined. We are still talking to the government to get clarification, but whatever happens, our intention is to make it fair across the board. We don't, at this point, we don't think you have to wear it outside, but that is not a positive yet.
Except that there is some information on the site that if you're crossing into Canada, you may have to be wearing a mask even if you're outside. Now, I have not found that information anywhere on the sites that I've looked at.
The wording is frustratingly vague in that anybody who has been outside of Canada in the past 14 days must wear a well-fitting mask anytime they are in a public space. It does not specify on the Government of Canada site whether that means indoors or outdoors. BC sites are better about making their rules specify that. But there's questions that we are talking to the government about that, about whether we are even a public space because we are a private event.
So that's we're still clarifying the additional stuff because the last time a piece of information that we received and things changed quite rapidly. But the last piece of information was a public space is anywhere that's not a private residence. So that would be indoors and outdoors.
And Canada, and like I said earlier on, the Canadian Health Canada and Health BC are on two totally different pages. So the BC guys called me and said, "Are you quarantining?" And I'm like, "No, you told me at the border I didn't have to." And my I don't. They're like, "Oh, you crossed after July 5th," and I'm like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't quarantine. We're closing the case." And guess who showed up at my friend's house? Canada Health showed up to check that I was there after I'd already left the country. It's very, very, it's all sorts of misinformation between Canada and BC. BC's the better information. They have much more detailed information.
So-
and BC for foreign returns defaults to the federal level. They say it's a federal regulation and they don't comment on it.
So to kind of be safe, I would recommend that everybody plan on wearing masks while you're fighting, just to have that covered just in case.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a mask other places, regardless of whether you have to wear it fighting or not. You do need it in a public space in Canada if you have been outside the country.
You don't need it, like children.
Okay, sorry. This is such a confusing topic that I really don't want other people giving their opinions on it. We have been with the Crown, the BOD, our Seneschal, Ulf, me, Jaime, like the only official word at this point is going to come from Ulf or I once we develop it with every other person. Let's not.
Sure. I can tell you what
Hi
the
guys,
BC regulation
hang on a
is.
second. Jaime, hang on a second. This is Atia. So I'm actually going to go ahead and cut off the conversation in regards to this. I would ask that you guys all wait until the event team actually gives out the information. This is an ongoing discussion that we've been having, and we're not ready to answer it at this time. So I would be, I'm fine if somebody wants to email me and talk to me directly about their concerns or any questions they would like, but at this point we can't answer the question, and we will be giving out more information as soon as we get it. So I think at this time, let's not take up this valuable time that we have right now to discuss coming into BC in regards to debating about whether we're going to have masks where fighting right now. It's an undecided decision, so let's just go ahead and leave it as it is.
On the flip side, I'm specifically here to answer questions about BC regulations. That's what the part of the second half of this meeting is. So I can say what the BC regulations are, or my interpretations of them are, so people can know what the BC regulations are.
So are there any non-mask lighting questions? Any more questions from people?
Just thanks for putting this together.
Everybody remember to practice sorry.
And be super polite.
And Atia, you said like about like a Canadian. Just where did that, like, really, didn't you notice that, everyone? She was like,
I thought she was from Canada. Yeah.
Hey, don't tease me, y'all. I've been talking to a lot of Canadians over the last 72 hours.
Can you say roof?
No.
Or pasta?
No, Eduardo, I love you. Please don't put me on the spot like that.
So if there are no other questions, we'll figure out how to share the PowerPoint with all of the information. And
yeah, send it to me, Eduardo, and I will make sure it gets up on the webpage as well.
And remember, it's only my personal experience. It's not an SCA official document.
Man, I'm holding you accountable, man.
I have a good lawyer. We may be fighting over her, though.
Yeah, that's it.
No other questions? Good luck. I hope that you guys have fun, and we'll be watching from the beach.
That sounds pretty nice.
Yeah, that does sound nice.
Well,
yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah, Eduardo from the event team, thank you very much for all that information. There are definitely a couple things we didn't know that we can now add to the event as well. So we really, really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And that infographic is amazing. Like, it's a great visual of what you need to do and when you need to do it. So share that quickly.
Great. Is there anything else to talk about? Nope. Do we want to keep going and have social hour, or are we shutting it down? What's the plan?
Bye. You guys have a good evening. Thank you for all your help.
Well, Ulf just came on. We can make fun of him since Antonio left.
That's always a fun thing.
I got kids to put to bed. Good night, everybody.
Are there any Americans planning on coming? I'm sorry. There was an appointment, for our kids' school, so I couldn't see the presentation, but I was curious if.
Want to raise hands again? With the little reaction thingies.
So if you're planning on coming, put your hand up or clap. Well, Joel clapped.
Oh,
I think we have some maybes as well. So.
Okay.
Well, I'm still waiting. It's going to be a nail biter if I get my enhanced ID back in time, because trying to schedule an appointment here in the Seattle metro area to have one made is difficult, as I learned earlier this week. So hopefully it will come in on like Wednesday or Thursday of that week, but it could be a nail biter photo finish because it's 7 to 10 processing days, and the 8th will be the 10th day. So I may or may not. But the plan at the moment is yes.
Yay, last minute everything. It's so hard.
Then there's the fun of trying to find something that I still fit into.
Oh, awesome.
So how was it? How was it hosting? Was it all okay? Thank you folks so much for stepping up.
Eduardo did all the work.
Yep.
Yeah.
We just sat here and looked pretty.
That's really hard to look pretty some days though. Well, I mean, easier for some, but.
I don't know if anybody else is super excited about this, but I am super excited about Achaxe and Mary putting together this fantastic idea for live streaming. I am so excited about it. I shared the trailer that Mary put out, and I shared it to the Society Seneschals. And then, so we had everybody in the society actually appreciated it a lot. They thought it was so epic. And then the Society Kingdom Seneschals, I shared it to them, and they were like, "Really? You guys do this?" I'm
Well,
like,
Mary
"Well,
does it. Mary's awesome.
Yeah, just wait till everybody wants it every event now, and then I will have walked away.
But all the Kingdom Seneschals, I just want to let you guys know that the Kingdom Seneschals were so utterly jealous. They were like, "You have somebody that does this?" And I went, yeah, we do. We're pretty awesome. So,
well, it'll be interesting. I'm making up fighter cards too for everybody so that people will have a reference of people's Joel contacting you for pictures soon. They'll have a reference of who the people look like that are fighting, and they'll have the arms, registered arms, so that we can watch the lists. So
I want to just say thank you. Thank you, Achaxe and Izzy, for doing this and making sure that the rest of the kingdom actually gets to have some form of participation in the Crown event. We're in COVID times, and I understand this is difficult for everybody, but I appreciate everybody's patience.
And Rifkin and Antonio are doing a lot of work as well. It's a four-way team. So.
I'm sorry.
You don't know. So thanks for thanking us. That's nice.